Hello everybody and welcome to a Replica Airguns video. My name is Michael K. and today we're going to talk about, do airguns and blank guns have recoil? Now probably the most common question I get is, do blowback airguns have recoil? And of course if you're comparing blowback airguns versus non-blowback airguns, you're not going to see as much recoil in a non-blowback airgun. And I have actually made a video talking about blowback airguns versus non-blowback airguns, so watch that video for more information on that subject. But can a non-blowback airgun have recoil? Absolutely. And the reason for this is because whenever there is a force in place, so air or CO2 rushing out of a barrel very quickly, you're going to have some sort of force in the opposite direction to that. Now, what affects that force? Several things. More force versus less force is going to have more recoil. Another factor is, what is that force pushing against? So you can apply the same force pushing against literally nothing, so air, you'll have less recoil. If you take that same force and put an object in front of it, it's going to push against that object and create more recoil. And to give you some examples of what I'm talking about, if you've ever seen a jet fighter on an aircraft deck, you'll notice that they put a little wall, or they put this little folding wall or brace up behind it so that the jet can push against something. Because air on its own has a lot of give. Even though air does allow the force to push against it, it's a lot less than if you had an actual solid object like a wall or whatnot behind you. Hope I'm explaining myself well. Another way to explain this is, let's say you're standing upright and you're facing a wall in sort of a push-up position with your hands on that wall. Now if you were to push off that wall as hard as you could with your arms and your chest, you're going to push yourself backwards and probably fall down, crack your head open. Let's say you move 4 feet away from the wall. Arms in the same position, ready to push. Push as hard as you can. What's going to happen? Literally nothing. Why? Because you're pushing against air. You're not pushing against a wall. You've used just as much force, yet the same result did not happen. Why is that? Because the wall offers more resistance, just like a bullet. And funny enough, when you're shooting light grain bullets, so let's say you have a 9mm round, and let's say you're shooting an 80 grain bullet, it's going to have less recoil than if you're shooting a 120 grain bullet. And sometimes you'll even need heavier springs for heavier grain bullets depending on the gun and what type of ammunition you use, and whether it's plus or whatnot ammunition, you might need a heavier spring. So that said, a gun like this, Webley Electo, shooting a 22 caliber pellet, fairly heavy pellet, let's say 12 to 14 grain pellet, and if I pump this up 3 times, it's going to shoot close to 500 feet per second, it will give me a little push. And because it has such a light trigger, no other movable actions, just basically the air releasing, the pellet coming out the barrel, I can feel the push. Now, is it like a 22 caliber bullet from a 22 long rifle gun? No, it's less than that, but it is noticeable. If I was shooting, let's say this gun that is not blowback, and if I was shooting a BB, a 5.1 grain BB out of this gun, I'm going to notice very, very, very tiny blowback, or very, very, very tiny recoil. But depending on the newness of the CO2, I might feel a little bit. Now when we get into blowback guns, like this Colt Commander, let's just show you something here. If I shoot it, the slide is going to move back and forth. So let's do this. And watch my arm. It's getting some sort of recoil. Is that from the CO2 rushing out the gun, or is that from the slide bouncing back and forth? More or less, it's from the slide moving back and forth. And if anything, the gun actually drops a little bit when the slide starts to move back. As it snaps back and comes forward, it tilts this way. If you watch some high-speed footage of blowback airgun shooting, you'll notice this sort of rocking effect. Whereas with an actual gun shooting a real bullet, there is no dropping of the gun. It's pretty much instantaneously going to move up. And then as the slide comes forward, it'll rock back a little bit. But it's this boom, boom, not this wobble effect, okay? So it's a different recoil using a blowback gun over a real gun, but there is still a recoil effect. Now when we're talking about blank guns, this is a blank gun, a ROM RG88, and you'll notice it has a heavier slide. I'm going to pull the magazine out. Okay, it has a heavier slide than a blowback air gun because there's more force from these blank cartridges. Blank guns Very interesting. Blank guns typically have a lot more force, and in general these cartridges hold just as much force as a real gun does. Maybe not quite as much, but very similar amounts of force. They just aren't pushing against anything. So this gun here, you'll notice, even though the barrel looks like it's plugged, you can see some light through it. It's hard to tell, but you will be able to see some light through it because the barrel isn't totally plugged. All the energy comes out the front. Okay, it's not a top venting, it's a front venting gun. So the energy comes out the front. So there is a little bit of actual recoil, but you're going to notice most of the recoil from the slide over the force of the gun or the gunpowder coming out the front. Now if I put this up against a wall and shot it, I'm going to notice a lot more recoil because I'm pushing against something. So that pushing against something effect makes a difference. And one of the things you'll notice, and I get this question quite often, there's sometimes are restrictors in blank gun barrels. They put a little threaded restrictor which narrows the opening, and the reason for that is so that there's something to push against so that the actual slide will move back. Because if there's nothing to push against, there's nothing to make the slide go back, the gun won't operate properly. And I've had lots and lots of people say to me, my gun isn't working, it's not ejecting, it's not loading. And then I'll say, did you take the restrictor out of the gun? Did you take that little screw that goes in there? Did you take that out of the gun? And they're like, yeah. And I asked them, did you throw it away? Do you still have it? Because it's required for the blowback slide, for the slide to blow back all the way. Okay, so if your gun's not working, that might be the reason why. So you need to push against something for the slide to move. Just like a bullet in a real gun, you need to push against something. Alright, before I finish up this video, I'm just going to show you some blowback action happening. Right, we're just going to do that. I've made sure there's no BBs in these guns. Not as much with this one, but still some blowback going on. Let's check out the Makarov blowback. But you can see my arm is affected by the recoil. There would be more with the ROM. There's just more energy. There's more of a violent snapping of the slide and a little more initial energy. I'm not going to show you that one inside. Probably wouldn't be a good idea. Alright, thanks for watching another Replica Airguns video. Don't forget to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Username is Replica Airguns. Don't forget to come on down to replicaAirguns.com and check out all of our other articles, reviews, and posts there with additional photos for you to check out. And while you're at replicaAirguns.com, check out our online Canada and US Replica Airgun stores where we sell air guns, BB guns, pellet guns, airsoft guns, blank guns, knives, and other accessories. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.